Good evening, and welcome to Hidden History Sleep. Tonight, we are going to travel quietly through time and visit one of the most extraordinary places in the ancient world, the Acropolis of Athens, the sacred rocky hill that has watched over the city of Athens for thousands of years. Tonight's story will not ask you to remember dates or names, and there will be no need to stay awake for every detail. Instead, allow the story to move gently around you, like a quiet evening breeze passing through ancient marble columns. If you enjoy this peaceful journey through hidden history, you can like the video and subscribe to Hidden History Sleep, but only if you truly enjoy the experience and would like to return for another quiet story. And if you feel like leaving a comment before you settle completely into sleep, tell us where you are tuning in from and what time it is for you right now. It is always beautiful to imagine these ancient stories traveling across thousands of miles, reaching someone in a quiet bedroom somewhere far from Athens. Now, dim the lights and let the room become soft and peaceful. If you enjoy the gentle background sound of moving air, turn on a fan and allow its steady hum to blend into the story. Get comfortable beneath your blankets. Let your head rest easily against your pillow. Relax your shoulders and allow your hands to become loose. There is nothing you need to solve tonight, nothing you need to finish, and nowhere you need to be. You can simply listen and let your imagination wander backward through time. Imagine you are standing beneath a warm Mediterranean evening sky, thousands of years ago, on the outskirts of an ancient city that will one day become famous throughout the world. In front of you, a rocky hill rises above the surrounding land. Its upper surface catches the last golden light of the setting sun, while the streets and homes below are slowly becoming shadowed. The air smells faintly of dust, olive trees, wood smoke, and the sea. Somewhere in the distance, you hear voices. A donkey calls from a nearby street. A dog barks once and then becomes quiet. The city is preparing for night. You look upward. On the summit of the hill, you can see walls and sacred buildings, their forms beginning to darken against the sky. This is the Acropolis of Athens. The word Acropolis simply means the upper city, or the high city, and the idea is wonderfully simple. This is a high place above the settlement below. But the Acropolis is much more than a hill. For thousands of years, people have climbed it carrying hopes, fears, prayers, offerings, tools, weapons, food, and memories. Long before the famous Parthenon stood above Athens, people were already using this rocky height. The hill was naturally defensible, rising steeply above the surrounding land. In an ancient world where cities could be threatened by enemies, high ground was precious. You can imagine an early settlement here, long before the Athens of philosophers and playwrights. Small structures stand behind protective walls. Fires burn in sheltered spaces. People carry water. Farmers bring food from the countryside. Children play near their homes while adults work. At night, the hill becomes almost completely dark except for small flames glowing in doorways. The stars above are brilliant because there are no electric lights to hide them. When you look upward, you can see a sky that is almost impossibly full of stars. The people living here do not know about distant galaxies in the way modern astronomers do. They see the sky as part of a world filled with gods, spirits, signs, and mysteries. They look upward and wonder just as humans still do. The hill beneath your feet is already old. It has existed long before the buildings you can see. Stone remembers in a way that people cannot. A human life may last for decades, but the earth beneath the Acropolis has experienced thousands upon thousands of seasons. Rain has fallen on it, sunlight has warmed it, animals have walked across it, trees have grown nearby. People have stood here, looked toward the horizon, and then disappeared into history. You begin walking upward. The path is uneven beneath your feet. Small stones shift as you step. The slope makes you breathe a little more deeply, and you pause for a moment to look back. Below you, Athens spreads across the landscape. But this is not the modern Athens of highways, apartment buildings, traffic, and bright city lights. Instead, you see a smaller ancient settlement. Low houses cluster together. Narrow paths wind between them. Courtyards are hidden behind simple walls. Smoke rises from cooking fires. Somewhere below, a market is slowly closing for the evening. People carry baskets home. A craftsman finishes his work. A family gathers around a meal. Life continues in ordinary ways. Above them all, the Acropolis rises. Even in these early centuries, the hill has a presence that is difficult to ignore. You continue climbing. The breeze becomes stronger as you rise. It carries the smell of dry grass and olive leaves. You hear the faint sound of insects in the evening. The sun is almost gone now. Soon the sky will become dark blue. You reach the upper part of the hill and stop beside an ancient wall. Imagine placing your hand against the stone. It is rough beneath your fingers. You wonder who placed it there. Perhaps a worker whose name disappeared thousands of years ago. Perhaps a person who had a family waiting at home. Perhaps someone who spent the entire day lifting stones and shaping them with simple tools. History often remembers kings, generals, architects, and philosophers, but behind every monument were thousands of ordinary people. Their names are lost, but their labor remains. This thought will follow us throughout our journey tonight. The Acropolis is famous because of its temples, but every temple was made possible by human hands. Every column began as stone in a mountain. Every sculpture began as a block. Every polished surface required patience. Every great ceremony depended upon people preparing food, clothing, music, offerings, animals, decorations, and countless other details. The magnificent Acropolis was built by ordinary people doing extraordinary amounts of work. As darkness arrives, you imagine the hill in a much later period when Athens has become a powerful city. The ancient world is changing. The people of Athens have developed a strong identity around their city and around their goddess Athena. Athena is associated with wisdom, strategic thinking, crafts, and the protection of the city. There are ancient stories about how she became the patron goddess of Athens. According to one famous story, Athena competed with Poseidon, the powerful god of the sea, for the city's favor. Each offered a gift. Poseidon struck the earth with his trident and produced a spring, although the water was salty. Athena offered an olive tree. The people chose Athena's gift. Whether you imagine the story as mythology, symbolism, or something in between, the olive tree became deeply connected with Athens. Olive trees could provide food, oil, wood, and many other useful things. Their silver-green leaves became part of the landscape and part of the identity of the region. You look down from the Acropolis and imagine rows of olive trees spreading across the countryside. Their branches move gently in the evening breeze. Somewhere among them, a farmer is finishing the day's work. He may have spent hours tending the trees, clearing the ground, carrying water, or gathering olives. He looks toward the Acropolis and sees the sacred hill above the city. Perhaps he has visited it many times. Perhaps he has never climbed all the way to the summit. The hill belongs to everyone, yet not everyone experiences it in the same way. Now imagine the city after a difficult period of war. The Acropolis has been attacked. Buildings have been destroyed. Smoke has risen above the hill. Sacred places have been damaged. The people remember the destruction, but they also begin to imagine something new. Athens is becoming stronger, and its leaders decide that the Acropolis should be rebuilt in a way that reflects the city's confidence and power. The great construction begins. You are there on a bright morning. The sun rises over Attica, turning the stone warm and golden. Workers arrive early. Some carry tools. Others inspect blocks of marble. Architects and overseers discuss measurements. The sound of hammers begins almost immediately. Tap, tap, tap. The rhythm travels across the hill. The marble used for many of the great buildings comes from Mount Pentelicus, north of Athens. Imagine the enormous effort required to obtain it. A mountain must be quarried. Stone must be separated from the rock. Large blocks must be shaped. Then they must somehow be transported toward Athens and eventually lifted onto the Acropolis. There are no engines, no modern cranes, no steel machines. There are ropes, wooden structures, levers, ramps, animals, and human strength. Every block represents work. You watch a group of workers pulling together on a rope. Their feet press into the ground. Their bodies lean backward. Someone gives a command. Slowly, the stone moves. Another worker adjusts the position. The process is careful because a mistake can be dangerous. A block of marble does not forgive carelessness. Nearby, stonecutters sit beside smaller pieces, shaping them with chisels. Tiny fragments fall around their feet. Their hands are dusty. Their clothes are covered with pale powder. The sun becomes hotter. Sweat gathers on their faces. Yet the work continues. Perhaps one worker looks up at the unfinished temple. He sees columns rising higher than any building he has ever worked on before. He may wonder how long the project will take. He may wonder whether future generations will admire it. Perhaps he simply wonders when the day's work will end. This is one of the beautiful mysteries of ancient construction. The people who built the Acropolis could not know exactly what it would become. They could not know that 2,000 years later, people from across the world would study their work. They could not know that photographs of their stones would appear on millions of screens. They could not know that travelers would cross oceans to stand where they once stood. They were simply doing their jobs, and yet their work became part of a story much larger than their own lives. The Parthenon begins to rise. Column by column, the temple takes shape. It is dedicated to Athena, the city's patron goddess. From a distance, the building appears almost impossibly balanced. Its columns stand in ordered rows. Its surfaces are carefully proportioned. Its sculptural decoration tells stories. The ancient architects were not merely stacking stones. They were creating an experience. They understood how light moves across surfaces, how human eyes perceive lines, and how proportions affect the feeling of a building. Some of the lines we might imagine as perfectly straight were adjusted subtly to create a more natural appearance to the human eye. The columns are not simple cylinders. Their shapes contain delicate refinements. The building seems calm and strong at the same time. You walk closer. The marble is bright in the sunlight. But what you see is not necessarily the complete color of the original monument. Ancient Greek temples could be painted and decorated with vivid colors. Sculptures could have painted details. Metal elements could shine. The ancient Acropolis was not simply a landscape of white stone. It was a world of color, movement, ritual, and sound. Imagine the Parthenon on a bright afternoon when it is newly completed. The marble glows. Painted details add color to sculptures. Bronze decorations catch the sunlight. People move around the temple. Priests prepare ceremonies. Visitors bring offerings. The air is filled with voices. The hill is alive. You step toward the entrance. The enormous columns rise above you. Their shadows create cool spaces on the ground. You can smell incense drifting through the air. Somewhere nearby, musicians are preparing for a ceremony. You hear the soft notes of pipes and the rhythm of drums. People speak quietly as they approach the sacred area. Inside the temple, the light is dimmer. Your eyes slowly adjust. Before you stands a monumental image of Athena. The statue is enormous and richly decorated. Gold catches the light. Ivory and other precious materials contribute to its appearance. The goddess seems larger than any ordinary human being. For an ancient worshipper, entering this space might feel overwhelming. This is not simply a room. It is a sacred environment where the human world seems to meet the divine. You imagine someone standing quietly before Athena, perhaps asking for protection. Maybe a sailor is about to leave Athens and hopes to return safely. Maybe a parent has brought an offering for the health of a child. Maybe a farmer is hoping for a successful harvest. Maybe a soldier is preparing for war. The ancient world was uncertain, and people looked to their gods for help in ways that modern people may understand, even if their beliefs are different. Everyone carries something they cannot control. Everyone hopes for something. Everyone fears something. The Acropolis receives all of it. Outside, Athens continues to grow. The city becomes famous for art, drama, philosophy, politics, architecture, and learning. But ordinary life continues below the great hill. You descend into the streets. The smell of food reaches you. Someone is baking bread. Another person is roasting meat. A potter sits at his wheel. Clay spins beneath his hands. He shapes a vessel, smoothing its surface with practiced fingers. Nearby, a merchant arranges goods for the next day's market. A child runs through the street and hears a parent calling from a doorway. You smile as the child stops and turns. The scene feels strangely familiar. Thousands of years separate you from these people, but human life still contains familiar rhythms. Work, food, family, conversation, rest, worry, hope. You walk farther and hear people discussing politics. Athens is developing a form of democracy, though it is very different from modern democracy and far from equal by modern standards. Political participation is largely restricted to male citizens. Women have different roles and fewer public rights. Enslaved people form a significant part of society. Foreign residents live and work in the city but do not have the same political status as citizens. Athens can produce astonishing achievements while also being deeply unequal. The Acropolis stands above all of this. Its beauty does not erase the complexity of the society that built it. Instead, the stones invite us to look more carefully. You continue through the city. Somewhere in the distance, you hear a debate. Someone is giving a speech. Another person interrupts. Voices rise and fall. Athens is full of arguments. People debate laws, wars, taxes, religion, philosophy, and the future of the city. In another corner, a playwright is preparing a performance. Actors rehearse. Costumes are arranged. The theatre will soon fill with citizens. Tragedy and comedy will become important parts of Athenian culture. But tonight, as darkness settles, the city quiets. Lamps begin to appear in homes. The marketplace empties. The streets become calmer. Above everything, the Acropolis catches the moonlight. You look up from below. The Parthenon appears almost unreal against the night sky. Its columns are pale and still. The temple seems to float above the sleeping city. You begin climbing again. As you rise, the noise of Athens becomes softer. Your footsteps are slow. The night air is cool now. When you reach the summit, you stop beside the temple and look across the city. You can see the dark outline of the hills. Beyond them lies the sea. The Mediterranean stretches toward distant lands and distant civilizations. Ships travel across those waters carrying grain, wine, olive oil, pottery, metals, and people. Athens is connected to a larger world. The sea is not simply a horizon, it is a road. Sailors leave the harbor and disappear beyond the edge of sight. Some return weeks later, some return months later, some never return. You stand quietly and imagine a ship leaving Athens at dawn. Its sail catches the wind. The vessel moves across the water. The people aboard look back toward the city. The Acropolis rises in the distance. Even from the sea, the hill is visible. It becomes a landmark for travelers returning home. Imagine being one of those sailors. After weeks away, you finally see the familiar shape of the Acropolis above the horizon. You know you are close to home. The feeling must have been powerful. The temple was not only sacred, it was a symbol of belonging. It told you that Athens was there. The city was waiting. The journey was almost over. You return to the hill in your imagination. The centuries begin moving again. The age of classical Athens does not last forever. Wars continue. Political power shifts. Rivals rise. Athens suffers losses. Yet the Acropolis remains. The buildings continue to dominate the hill. People born long after the original builders still climb the same slopes. Children grow up seeing the Parthenon above the city. Visitors arrive from distant regions. Philosophers and students discuss ideas in the streets. The world changes around the hill, but the hill remains familiar. Then the great power of Macedonia rises. Alexander the Great and the world created by his conquests transform the eastern Mediterranean. Greek culture spreads widely. Cities far from Athens begin building in Greek styles. Greek language and ideas travel across enormous distances. The Acropolis becomes part of a much larger cultural story. You imagine a traveler from another region arriving in Athens. He has heard of the city since childhood. He has seen Greek temples in other places, but now he stands before the original. He looks upward at the Parthenon. Perhaps he is silent for a moment. Perhaps he is impressed by the scale. He walks around the columns. He studies the sculptures. He has traveled far to see this place, and now he is standing here. Centuries later, another empire arrives. Rome becomes the dominant power of the Mediterranean. Athens loses political independence but gains a different kind of importance. Roman elites admire Greek culture. They travel to Athens to study philosophy and literature. Roman leaders commission buildings and monuments. Greek art and ideas influence Roman society deeply. You walk through Roman Athens. The streets look different now. Latin and Greek are both heard. Roman soldiers move through the city. Merchants sell goods. Visitors arrive from across the empire. Yet the Acropolis still rises above them. You stand beside a Roman traveller as he looks at the Parthenon. He has seen the enormous buildings of Rome, but this temple has a different character. It carries centuries of memory. The Romans themselves understand that Greek civilization is ancient and prestigious. Their empire may be powerful, but Athens possesses something they cannot simply create by force. It possesses history. You watch the sun set over Roman Athens. The Parthenon becomes orange, then red, then grey. The city below begins to glow with lamps. Somewhere, a Roman official is preparing for dinner. Somewhere else, a Greek family is closing its shutters. Somewhere, a child is falling asleep while the same ancient hill remains above the rooftops. Time moves slowly. Then Christianity spreads across the Roman world. The old religious system begins to change. Temples that once belonged to ancient gods acquire new meanings. The Parthenon is eventually transformed into a Christian church. Imagine walking inside during this period. The ancient statue of Athena is gone. The old rituals have ended. The interior has been altered. A Christian altar stands where worshippers once honored Athena. New paintings and religious symbols appear. Bells and Christian prayers replace the ceremonies of the ancient world. And yet the walls are still the same ancient walls. This is one of the most remarkable things about the Acropolis. The building survives by being reused. It becomes something different while carrying traces of what came before. A person entering the church may not think of the ancient goddess. They may think only of their own faith. But beneath their feet is the same stone worn by countless earlier generations. The centuries continue. The Roman world changes. The Byzantine Empire emerges. Athens becomes part of a Christian Eastern Mediterranean. The Acropolis remains important, although its meaning continues to evolve. You imagine standing here during a quiet Byzantine evening. The city below is smaller. The atmosphere is peaceful. The church bells have stopped for the night. A few lamps glow inside homes. The ancient columns are dark against the sky. Perhaps a monk walks slowly along the hill. Perhaps a soldier watches from the walls. Perhaps a traveller rests after climbing the steep path. None of them know the future. None know that the Acropolis will become one of the most famous archaeological sites on Earth. They are simply living their lives. This is something worth remembering when we think about ancient history. People do not wake up knowing they are living in an important century. A person living in the year 500 may not know that 1,000 years later someone will study their world. A child playing near an ancient wall does not know that the wall will become famous. A worker repairing a building does not know that future visitors will wonder about the repair. History is created while ordinary life is happening. The Acropolis is full of such invisible lives. You sit beneath the ancient stones and imagine them passing around you. A woman carrying water, a soldier checking a gate, a priest preparing a ceremony, a child chasing another child, a craftsman closing his workshop, a sailor looking toward the sea, a farmer bringing olives into the city, a traveller asking for directions, an old man remembering a war from his youth. Thousands upon thousands of people, each one with a complete life. Each one once believed their present moment mattered, and then their lives became memories. The stones remained. You rise and walk toward the edge of the hill again. The wind has become stronger. The sea is invisible now, but you can feel the cool air coming from its direction. You look down at Athens. The city seems peaceful, but history is never completely peaceful. The Acropolis will experience more wars, more rulers, more changes, more destruction. It will be transformed again and again. Eventually, the ancient religious world will become a distant memory. The Parthenon will have another life. It will become a church, then later a mosque. A minaret will rise beside the ancient temple. New generations will live beneath the same hill. The ancient Greek gods will no longer be worshipped here in the same way, yet the Parthenon will remain. The columns will continue to stand. The marble will continue to absorb sunlight. The hill will continue to watch over Athens. You close your eyes for a moment. When you open them, you imagine the centuries moving faster. Roman soldiers disappear. Byzantine robes disappear. Medieval travelers appear, then disappear. New rulers arrive. New languages are spoken. New homes rise below the hill. The Acropolis changes, but never completely disappears. It is as though the hill itself is breathing slowly through history. Inhale, exhale, century after century. The wind moves across the stone. The city changes beneath it. The stars move overhead, and still the hill remains. You begin walking once more, slowly, toward the temple. The marble is cool now. You place your hand against one of the columns. It is difficult to believe how much time has passed. The stone has seen civilizations come and go. It has seen people celebrate and mourn. It has seen fires and festivals. It has seen kings and ordinary workers. It has seen ships leave the harbor and return. It has seen Athens become powerful and then lose power. It has seen religions change. It has seen languages evolve. And somehow, you are standing here now, touching the same ancient material. For a brief moment, you feel connected to every person who has ever stood here. Not because you know their names, but because you share something simple with them. You are alive. You are looking at the world. You are breathing. You are wondering what comes next. That is enough. The night becomes quieter. The city below begins to disappear into darkness. The Acropolis is illuminated only by moonlight in your imagination. The columns form long shadows. The Parthenon seems peaceful. You sit down beside the ancient stones and allow yourself to rest. There is no need to hurry. The story of this hill is thousands of years long, and tonight we have only walked through part of it. The centuries ahead will bring more changes, more destruction, more survival, and eventually the modern world that knows the Acropolis as one of the greatest monuments of ancient Greece. But for now, you can remain here in the quiet. Listen to the breeze. Feel the cool night air. Look toward the distant hills. Imagine the olive trees below moving softly in the darkness. Somewhere in the ancient city, a lamp goes out. Another follows. A family closes a door. A street becomes silent. One by one, Athens settles into sleep. Above it, the Acropolis remains awake beneath the stars. You take a slow breath. The ancient stones seem almost warm with memory. You let your thoughts become slower. The names and dates no longer matter. All that matters is the feeling of standing in a place where thousands of years seem to gather together. The people who built the Parthenon are gone. The people who prayed there are gone. The people who transformed it into a church are gone. The people who watched it during the medieval centuries are gone. The people who saw wars and changes are gone. Yet the hill remains. And perhaps there is something comforting about that. Human lives are brief, but the stories we leave behind can travel much farther than we can. A stone placed carefully by an unknown worker can still be touched thousands of years later. A temple built for an ancient goddess can become a symbol recognized around the world. A hill that once protected a small settlement can become one of the most famous places on earth. You close your eyes. The Acropolis fades into darkness, but it does not disappear. It remains somewhere behind your closed eyes, standing above Athens beneath the moon. The wind moves through the columns. The city breathes below. The sea waits beyond the horizon. And you rest quietly among the ancient stones, listening as the centuries become softer and softer, until history itself seems to settle into the gentle rhythm of the night dot. The night is deep now, and the ancient Acropolis rests beneath a sky filled with stars. You remain there for a little while longer, sitting quietly among the stones, listening to the soft movement of the wind. The city below has changed many times during the long life of this hill, and yet Athens is still here, glowing softly beneath you. But the story of the Acropolis is not finished. The centuries ahead will bring new rulers, new religions, new wars, new travelers, and new questions about what should happen to a monument that belongs to so many different moments in human history. Imagine that you open your eyes and the centuries begin moving again. The Byzantine world slowly gives way to the medieval centuries. Athens becomes smaller and quieter than the great city of classical times. The Acropolis remains a place of importance, protected by its walls and shaped by the needs of the people who live there. The ancient Parthenon is still standing, but it is no longer the temple that Pericles and the builders of classical Athens once knew. It has become a Christian church. Inside, the atmosphere is different. Instead of the ancient ceremonies dedicated to Athena, there are Christian prayers and rituals. The old sacred space has been given a new identity. You can imagine a quiet morning when sunlight enters through the openings of the ancient structure and falls across the floor. A priest walks slowly through the building. A few worshippers arrive. Their footsteps echo against the stone. Perhaps they know that the building is very old, but they may not understand every detail of its ancient history. To them, this is simply a holy place. They have inherited it from earlier generations, just as later generations will inherit it from them. Outside, Athens begins another day. The marketplace opens. Animals move through the streets. People carry water. Bakers prepare food. Craftsmen open workshops. Children run through narrow lanes. Life continues in ways that would feel familiar to people from centuries before. The Acropolis watches all of it. It has become a silent witness to the changing city. You walk along the walls and look toward the horizon. The mountains are still there. The sea is still there. Olive trees still grow across the land. The landscape has changed less than the people have. That is one of the quiet truths of the Acropolis. Human beings continually rebuild their world, but the earth beneath them changes much more slowly. You can almost feel the layers of time beneath your feet. Below the medieval world is the Byzantine world. Beneath that is the Roman world. Beneath that is the classical world. Beneath that are even older settlements. Every layer contains people who believed their own lives were happening in the present. None of them knew they were becoming part of a historical sequence. You walk slowly, imagining those invisible layers. A soldier from one century stands where a priest from another century will later stand. A merchant passes beneath an arch that once belonged to another age. A child plays near stones that will eventually become famous around the world. History is not always a straight road. It is more like layers of footprints covering the same ground. Eventually, new political powers reach Athens. The Acropolis changes again. The hill becomes a military stronghold as well as a place of worship. Walls are repaired and strengthened. Soldiers watch the surrounding land. The ancient buildings are adapted to practical needs. The Parthenon, still one of the most important structures on the hill, becomes part of a changing defensive landscape. Imagine walking through Athens during the medieval period. You would not see the clean archaeological site familiar to modern visitors. The Acropolis would feel like a living fortress. People would live and work around ancient structures. New walls would stand beside old marble. Some ancient sculptures might be reused. Some buildings would be altered. The past would not be separated from the present. It would be part of everyday life. Perhaps a soldier standing on the wall at sunset looks toward the sea. He has no idea that centuries later visitors will come to this same place carrying cameras. He is thinking about the next watch, the weather, and whether anything is moving on the horizon. The sun disappears. He lights a small lamp. The night begins. The Acropolis remains. Centuries pass. The political map of Greece continues to change. Eventually, Athens comes under Ottoman rule. The city becomes part of the Ottoman world, and the Acropolis takes on another identity. The Parthenon becomes a mosque. Once again, the same ancient walls hold a different religious life. A minaret rises beside the temple. The hill is still sacred, but its sacred meaning has changed. Imagine approaching the Acropolis during this period. You hear different languages in the streets. Clothing has changed. Architecture has changed. The city has a new political character. Yet as you climb the hill, the ancient columns still rise above you. The Parthenon still dominates the summit. The marble still catches the light. You might wonder what an ancient Athenian would think if they could return and see this place. Perhaps they would be shocked by the changes. Perhaps they would recognize the columns immediately. Perhaps they would simply stand in silence. The human world beneath the temple has changed many times, but the stone remains strangely familiar. You sit for a moment beside an ancient block. The sun is warm. A bird moves across the sky. Below you, people continue their daily routines. A merchant opens his shop. A family prepares a meal. A child carries water. Somewhere, a traveler arrives in the city after a long journey. The Acropolis is not frozen in the past. It is part of the lives of the people living around it. That is important to remember. Ancient monuments are often presented as if they existed only in the distant past, but the Acropolis has spent most of its history being used by people in the present. The people who lived around it did not think of themselves as living inside an archaeological site. They simply lived there. They repaired things. They built things. They changed things. They used old buildings for new purposes. They made decisions according to the needs of their own time. The past was never completely separate from them. And then, slowly, the modern age approaches. Travelers from Western Europe become increasingly fascinated with ancient Greece. They read classical authors. They study Greek philosophy. They admire Greek architecture. They dream of visiting Athens. Some arrive carrying notebooks and drawing materials. Others come with an interest in collecting ancient objects. The Acropolis begins to attract a new kind of attention. It is no longer only a sacred or military place. It is becoming a symbol of an ancient civilization that people far beyond Greece want to understand. Imagine yourself as a traveler arriving in Athens during this period. The journey has taken days or weeks. Roads are difficult. Travel is uncomfortable. You finally reach the city. You look upward and see the Acropolis. The ancient hill rises above Athens. The Parthenon is still there, though it has changed through the centuries. You climb slowly. You are amazed. You sketch the columns. You write notes. You measure distances. You wonder about the people who built it. You have no modern photography, no digital maps, no instant communication. If you want to remember what you see, you must draw it or describe it in words. Your notebook becomes a small piece of the Acropolis carried away into another part of the world. But these travelers also participate in a complicated process. Ancient sculptures and architectural pieces begin leaving Greece. Some are purchased. Some are removed under circumstances that remain debated. Some eventually end up in foreign collections and museums. The question of who should possess ancient cultural heritage will continue long after these travelers are gone. You stand quietly on the Acropolis and watch as fragments of its history begin traveling far away. A sculpture that once belonged to a temple may eventually be displayed thousands of miles from Athens. A piece of marble may become part of another country's collection. People will debate whether these objects should remain where they were created or be displayed elsewhere. The arguments will continue for generations. But the Acropolis itself remains on the hill. Then comes the 17th century, and the ancient temple faces one of its most terrible moments. Athens is caught in a war between powerful forces. The Acropolis becomes a military position. The Parthenon, which has survived for more than 2,000 years, is being used to store gunpowder. This decision will have devastating consequences. Imagine the hill during a tense evening. Soldiers are nearby. Weapons are stored inside the ancient temple. The city below is anxious. In the distance, an enemy force is approaching. The Parthenon was never designed for war. Its columns were designed for beauty and balance, not to protect explosives. Yet the ancient temple has been transformed into a military storehouse. You hear distant cannon fire. The sound grows closer. The night becomes frightening. Then a projectile strikes the building. The explosion is enormous. Fire and smoke rise into the sky. Stone tears apart. The roof collapses. Columns are shattered. Sculptures fall. The ancient temple that had survived so many centuries is suddenly broken. Imagine standing on a nearby street as the explosion shakes the city. For a moment, everything seems to stop. Then fragments of marble fall from the sky. Smoke covers the Acropolis. People shout. Soldiers move through the chaos. The great Parthenon has been changed forever. Later, when the smoke clears, silence returns. You climb toward the hill. The scene is difficult to recognize. Broken columns lie among stones. The once protected interior is open to the sky. Pieces of sculpture have been damaged or scattered. The temple is still recognizable, but it is no longer complete. You stand among the ruins and imagine the building as it was before the explosion. You remember the columns filled with sunlight. You imagine painted sculptures. You imagine priests and worshippers. You imagine festivals and music. Now there is only wind. The Acropolis has survived, but survival has come at a price. The ruins that people see today are partly the result of this destruction. When you visit a ruin, you are not simply looking at something ancient. You are looking at the result of thousands of years of change. Some stones were placed in antiquity. Some were moved later. Some were broken by war. Some were damaged by weather. Some were removed by people. Some were restored by modern archaeologists. The monument is a conversation between different centuries. You sit beside a broken column. The moon rises above the ruins. Perhaps the most comforting thing about the scene is that even after such destruction, the Acropolis has not disappeared. The hill remains. The surviving columns remain. The foundations remain. The memory remains. Human beings can destroy parts of history, but they cannot easily erase the place itself. The 18th century arrives. More travelers come. Artists draw the ruins. Writers describe them. Scholars study them. The Acropolis becomes increasingly famous in Europe and beyond. People begin imagining classical Athens as an ideal world of beauty, reason, philosophy, democracy, and art. But the real ancient city was more complicated. The ruins cannot tell you everything. They cannot show you every ordinary worker. They cannot show you every enslaved person. They cannot show you every woman whose life was mostly outside public political life. They cannot show you every person who suffered during war. The stones are beautiful, but beauty does not erase history's complexity. You walk slowly through the ruins and allow both ideas to exist together. This was a remarkable civilization. It was also a society with inequalities and conflicts. Its achievements were extraordinary. Its limitations were real. The Acropolis can be admired without pretending the ancient world was perfect. In fact, perhaps the monument becomes more meaningful when we see it honestly. Then, During the 19th century, Greece moves toward independence and becomes a modern nation. Athens eventually becomes the capital of the new Greek state. The Acropolis takes on a new role. It becomes a powerful symbol of Greek identity. Archaeologists begin studying the hill more systematically. They clear away later structures in an effort to reveal the ancient remains. This creates a new kind of Acropolis. The medieval and Ottoman layers are often removed or reduced because the goal is to present the classical Greek monument. Modern visitors will come to see the ruins of the ancient world, and the site will increasingly be understood as an archaeological treasure. Imagine being one of the workers involved in this process. You arrive at the hill carrying tools. You clear soil. You uncover stones. You discover pieces of sculpture. You carefully examine ancient surfaces. Each discovery raises new questions. What was this building used for? Where did this sculpture belong? How did the ancient architects construct this wall? What colors were originally used? How did people move around the hill? Archaeology is partly the art of asking questions of incomplete evidence. The Acropolis does not give up all its secrets at once. Some answers are clear, others remain uncertain. Some mysteries may never be solved, and that uncertainty is part of the fascination. You look at an ancient stone and wonder about the person who shaped it. You look at a broken sculpture and imagine the missing pieces. You look at an empty space and wonder what once stood there. The gaps invite imagination. By the 20th century, Athens has become a modern city. Roads spread around the ancient hill. Electric lights appear. Cars begin moving through the streets. Buildings rise around the Acropolis. The city becomes louder and more crowded. Yet the ancient hill still dominates the skyline. Imagine standing on the Acropolis during the early modern era. You hear engines below. You see lights stretching across the city. Airplanes may pass overhead. The world has changed almost beyond recognition. But if you close your eyes, you can still imagine the ancient landscape. The mountains have not moved. The sea remains. The hill remains. The sunrise still comes from the same direction. The sunset still turns the marble warm. The wind still passes through the columns. The continuity is astonishing. Modern Athens grows around the ancient monument rather than replacing it. Millions of people now live in the wider metropolitan area. Every morning, the Acropolis rises above the city as it has for centuries. Some people barely notice it because they see it every day. Others stop and look. Tourists arrive from across the world. School children learn about the ancient Greeks. Photographers wait for the right light. Researchers study the stone. Conservators carefully examine the structure. Engineers think about how to protect the ancient remains from earthquakes, pollution, weather, and the enormous number of visitors. The Acropolis has become not only an ancient monument but also a modern responsibility. You walk among the columns in your imagination and notice the signs of preservation. Some surfaces have been repaired. Some stones have been carefully repositioned. Modern equipment helps researchers understand the structure. Technology that would have seemed impossible to the ancient builders now helps protect their work. But even with modern science, conservation is delicate. The goal is not simply to make the Parthenon look new. The goal is to preserve what remains while respecting its history. Every intervention raises questions. How much should be repaired? How much should be left broken? Should missing pieces be reconstructed? How can modern materials be used without harming ancient stone? There are no simple answers. The Acropolis continues to change, even as people try to preserve it. You pause beside a column. Imagine the column when it was new. Its marble was fresh. Its surface was carefully finished. The surrounding sculptures were complete. The temple was alive with color and ceremony. Now imagine the same column after 2,000 years. Its surface has weathered. Parts are missing. The surrounding buildings are gone. yet it is still recognizable. You can still see the intelligence of the original design. You can still feel the balance. The ancient builders succeeded in creating something that could communicate across enormous distances of time. You do not need to speak ancient Greek to understand the rhythm of the columns. You do not need to know every myth to appreciate the scale. You do not need to memorize every historical date to feel the weight of the place. The architecture speaks through proportion, light, shadow, and stone. You walk toward the edge of the hill. Below you, modern Athens stretches toward the horizon. The city is full of life. Cars move through streets. People walk to work. Restaurants open. Buses carry passengers. Phones glow in people's hands. Buildings are filled with families, offices, schools, and businesses. Somewhere below, someone is rushing because they are late. Someone else is sitting quietly with a cup of coffee. Someone is laughing with friends. Someone is worried about tomorrow. The modern city contains millions of separate stories. The ancient Acropolis stands above all of them. Perhaps this is what makes the view so moving. The hill is not isolated from modern life. It watches modern life happen beneath it. You imagine the ancient Athenians looking down at their own city and feeling something similar. Their city was also full of ordinary worries. People argued. People worked. People celebrated. People became tired. They thought their lives were important because they were living them. We are not so different. The details have changed, but the basic human experience remains. You return to the Parthenon in your imagination at sunset. The sky is turning orange. The marble catches the light. The shadows of the columns stretch across the ground. The city below begins to glow. You can almost hear the ancient festival crowds returning. Music, footsteps, voices, animals, priests, children. The movement of thousands of people climbing toward the sacred hill. You imagine a procession approaching the Acropolis. People carry offerings. Young women wear ceremonial clothing. Musicians play. Citizens walk together. The city seems to become one moving body. The procession reaches the sacred hill. The Parthenon rises before them. For a moment, everyone looks upward. Then the ceremony continues. Now allow that scene to fade. The people disappear. The music becomes quieter. The sun sets. The ancient festival becomes a memory. The hill returns to silence. You are alone again. This movement between noise and silence has happened countless times. The Acropolis has been crowded and empty, celebrated and attacked, repaired and damaged, worshipped and studied. It has been a place of certainty and a place of questions. You sit beside the ancient stone and listen to the wind. Perhaps the greatest thing about the Acropolis is not that it is unchanged. It is that it has survived change. It has endured because different generations found new reasons to care about it. One generation saw a temple. Another saw a church. Another saw a mosque. Another saw a fortress. Another saw an archaeological monument. Another sees a symbol of ancient Greece. Future generations may find new meanings again. The stone will continue to carry all of them. You breathe slowly. The air is cool now. The stars are brighter. The modern city lights spread below like a second sky. You look toward the horizon and imagine the ancient sea filled with ships. Then you imagine Roman ships, medieval vessels, Ottoman ships, modern boats, different centuries crossing the same water. The sea connects them all. The same waves have touched the shores of Athens for thousands of years. Perhaps an ancient sailor once watched the moon reflected on that water. Perhaps a medieval traveler did the same. Perhaps a modern visitor stands by the coast tonight looking at the same moon. Human beings change. The sea continues. The hill continues. The sky continues. You begin to feel sleepy. The story is becoming quieter. You no longer need to follow every image. Let them drift gently through your mind. Imagine the Acropolis before the Parthenon, a rocky hill, a small settlement, a sacred place. Then imagine the great temple rising, stone by stone, column by column. Imagine the workers, the architects, the sculptors. Imagine the festivals. Imagine the city below. Then allow those images to soften. The centuries move forward. The temple becomes a church. The church becomes a mosque. War damages the building. The ruins remain. Travelers arrive. Archaeologists study. Modern Athens grows. And through all of it, the hill remains. It is almost like watching a long dream where the scenery changes, but one shape stays constant. The Acropolis is that shape. You lie back in your imagination and look at the stars. The marble beneath you is cool. The wind is gentle. The city sounds are distant. You hear only a soft hum far below. Perhaps you imagine the sound of a modern fan in your room blending with the ancient breeze in Athens. Two different worlds, two different kinds of quiet, and yet both can carry you towards sleep. You think about the people who lived here long ago. They also had nights when they needed rest. After a day of work, a farmer would return home. A stoneworker would wash dust from his hands. A sailor would lie down after a long journey. A mother would quiet a child. An old man would sit near a doorway
and watch the evening become dark. Their world was different, but their need for sleep was the same. The Acropolis watched over them. Tonight, in a small way, you are watching over its story. You continue to breathe slowly, inhale and exhale. The hill rises quietly above Athens. Nothing is required of you. You do not need to remember the exact year the Parthenon was built. You do not need to remember the names of every ruler or architect. You only need to remember the feeling of the place. A high rocky hill, white marble, olive trees, Mediterranean air, a city beneath you, a sky above you, thousands of years passing slowly between one sunset and another. Imagine walking down from the Acropolis one last time. The path is quiet. Your footsteps are soft. You look back. The Parthenon is visible against the night sky. The columns are pale beneath the moon. You know that when morning comes, people will climb this hill again. Tourists will arrive. Guides will speak. Cameras will click. Scholars will study. Workers will continue protecting the ancient stones. Children will look upward and perhaps wonder how such a place was built. Life will continue. But tonight, the Acropolis belongs to the darkness. The ancient temple rests beneath the stars. The city sleeps below. The wind moves gently across the hill. You walk farther down. An olive tree stands nearby. Its leaves shimmer in the night air. You pause beneath it. The tree feels like another symbol of time. An olive tree can live for generations. Its roots hold the soil. Its branches return each year. The ancient Greeks valued olive trees for their practical gifts, but perhaps they also understood something deeper. The tree is a reminder of continuity. Seasons change. Leaves fall. New leaves appear. The tree remains. The Acropolis is much the same. Stones break. Buildings change. People disappear. New generations arrive. The place remains. You continue walking. Athens is quiet now. A few lights glow in windows. Somewhere a late traveler crosses the street. Somewhere a restaurant is closing. Somewhere someone is washing dishes. Somewhere a child is already asleep. Somewhere another person is listening to a story about ancient Athens. You realize that history is not really gone. It survives whenever someone remembers it. Every time someone tells the story of the Acropolis, another small bridge is created between the present and the past. Tonight you have walked across that bridge. You have stood beside the ancient builders. You have watched the Parthenon rise. You have heard the festival crowds. You have watched Athens change. You have seen the temple become a church and later a mosque. You have witnessed war damage the monument. You have watched travelers rediscover it. You have seen modern Athens grow around it. And now you are returning to the quiet present. The journey is almost over, but before you leave, imagine one final scene. It is early morning in ancient Athens. The sky is beginning to brighten. The stars are fading. The first light touches the top of the Acropolis. The marble slowly changes from gray to pale gold. Birds begin to call. The city below wakes. A door opens. Someone steps into the street. A baker prepares the first bread of the day. A worker begins walking toward the hill. The sun rises higher. The Parthenon shines. The ancient city begins another day. Now imagine the same sunrise thousands of years later. The modern city wakes beneath the same hill. Cars move through the streets. People begin their morning routines. The Acropolis catches the sunlight again. The same basic miracle happens. Morning follows night. The city wakes. The hill remains. You stand between those two mornings, one ancient and one modern, and realize that the distance between them is enormous yet strangely small. The people are different, but the sunrise is familiar. The hills are familiar. The sea is familiar. The human need to begin another day is familiar. Perhaps this is why ancient places can feel so intimate. They remind us that we are temporary, but we are not completely separate from those who came before. We inherit their buildings, their stories, their mistakes, their achievements, and their questions. The Acropolis asks us to look backward without forgetting the present. It reminds us that civilizations are made by people, and people are fragile. Great cities can rise. Great cities can fall. Temples can be built. Temples can be damaged. Religions can change. Empires can disappear. But human curiosity continues. People continue to ask who built these places, why they were built, what happened here, and what their survival means. You walk through the final quiet streets of Athens in your imagination. The morning light is gentle. The Acropolis is behind you now, but you can still see it above the rooftops. You stop one last time and look back. The hill seems peaceful. The Parthenon is incomplete but beautiful. It does not need to be perfect. Its broken columns and missing sculptures are part of its story. Its survival is more powerful because it carries evidence of everything it has endured. You take a slow breath. The air is warm. Somewhere above, a bird circles the ancient temple. The city is waking. The story of the Acropolis continues without you. It continued before you arrived, and it will continue after you leave. That is not sad. It is peaceful. You do not need to carry the whole history with you. You can leave some of it here among the stones. Leave the names. Leave the dates. Leave the battles. Leave the questions. Keep only the quiet image of the hill beneath the sky. Keep the sound of the wind. Keep the pale marble. Keep the olive trees. Keep the distant sea. Let the rest fade, as you imagine walking farther away. The Acropolis becomes smaller in the distance. The hill remains above Athens like a silent guardian. You can still see the Parthenon catching the first light of morning. The columns glow softly. The city stretches around it. Thousands of years of human life seem to rest inside that single view. You breathe slowly. Your body feels heavier beneath the blankets. Your room is quiet. The fan hums softly in the background. The lights are dim. You are warm and comfortable. And the ancient Acropolis is now only a peaceful image in your mind. Imagine the hill once more before the city became large. Before the famous temple, before the tourists, before the photographs, before the history books. Just a rocky hill beneath an open sky. The earth is quiet. The olive trees move gently. The sea is somewhere beyond the horizon. A few people walk below. The sun is setting. Then the stars appear. The hill waits. Centuries pass. The hill waits. Civilizations rise. The hill waits. Empires fall. The hill waits. And through it all, the same moon continues to travel across the sky. You let yourself become very still. There is nothing more you need to hear. The story can continue without words. The Acropolis can remain in the distance. Athens can sleep beneath it. The ancient stones can rest beneath the stars. And you can rest too. Tonight you have traveled through thousands of years without leaving your bed. You have walked through ancient Athens, stood beside the builders of the Parthenon, watched ceremonies dedicated to Athena, witnessed the changing fortunes of the city, followed the temple through Roman and Byzantine times, seen it become a church and later a mosque, watched the terrible destruction that damaged the Parthenon, and followed its journey into the modern world as one of the most recognized ancient monuments on Earth. But now the journey is finished for tonight. The Acropolis remains where it has always been, high above Athens, looking toward the sea and beneath the open Mediterranean sky. You take one final slow breath. Inhale gently and exhale. Let your shoulders become loose. Let your thoughts become quiet. Imagine the ancient columns standing peacefully in the moonlight. Imagine the olive leaves moving in the breeze. Imagine the distant sound of waves. Imagine Athens sleeping below. And as your eyes become heavier, allow the centuries to fade into a single peaceful moment. The ancient world is far away, but its stones remain. The story is complete, but the hill remains. The night is quiet, and you are safe and warm beneath your blankets. So let the Acropolis slowly disappear into the darkness of your imagination, not as a place that has vanished, but as a place that continues to stand, quietly remembering everything it has seen. The wind moves across the marble. The stars remain overhead. Athens rests below. And somewhere between the ancient past and the peaceful present, you can finally let yourself drift into sleep.